Hello, Dr. Suzanne Bechtel here. This video concerns Rule 1 of ALWD, and the lecturer will go through Rule 1, 1.2, and 1.3. She also includes some interesting tidbits of good information on using other sources to help with their citation and save time. She goes into also a little bit of some of the charts, particularly chart 1.1. Getting to Rule 1, the contents and citation basics, and Rule 1, typeface for citations.
So Rule 1.1 basically tells you that there's 4 different types of typeface. It's kind of like a font, but it really isn't a font. It's the way that the letters appear. So here we have ordinary type, italics, underlining, and large and small capital letters. For the purposes of this class, we're going to be worried only about the first 3. The large and small capital letters are usually used for academic writing, so we can just simply ignore those. So when we're looking at the different parts of the formulas for our citations, you have to pay attention to if something is underlined or italicized or if it's just in regular letters. That's an easy rule to remember, okay? All right. 1.2 says that most citation components use ordinary type, either in uppercase or lowercase letters with no enhancements. Enhancements means like italicizing or underlining. So if the rule is silent, your default is ordinary type with nothing special on it. All right, Rule 1.3. When to use italics. All right, so you're going to be looking at the formula to determine if something has to be italicized or underlined. Now, italics and underlining can be used interchangeably. Either one is perfectly correct until you get to your local rules. All right, so for Florida, they prefer underlining instead of italics. But that's a local rule. Okay, but for ALWD, you can use either one, italics or underlining. So you have to pay particular attention to the components, such as if you look at Rule 12.1, so go ahead and flip over to 12.1, that is on page 57. In the formula and in the gray section, everything is pretty much ordinary type except the case name is italicized. And also the subsequent history, but we're not going to worry about the subsequent history. So the font looks different between the case name and then the reporter volume. So because the formula's got that little tilt to it, you know that the case name has to be underlined or italicized. So if you look at the example, United States versus Rovario, or Roviaro, the case name is actually italicized. All right. Any questions with that one? All right. Rule 1.3b. Italicizing or underlining punctuation. So here it says you can italicize commas and periods when they're located within other italicized components. So if it's part of the component, you have to italicize it. All right, so look at my example here on the screen. We have Tomlinson versus Goldman, Sachs and Company. So remember how I just told you on Rule 12.1 for the case that the case name component has to be italicized? Let me make this a little bit bigger. So if you notice, the case name from beginning to end is italicized up until that last little comma, because that's where our component stops, is right before that last comma. So the punctuation within that case component, that case name component, has to be italicized as well. So here it's underlined, which is fine, but if I had italicized it, you would see that the little period after V, the comma after Goldman, the ampersand, and that little period right after Co, they would all be italicized as well. Here I have them underlined because it's easier to see. But that last little comma right after Co period is not italicized because that does not include the component. So it can be very technical. It can be. All right, so if it's italicized, and actually if you look at the example in your book on page 2, that's that same case, but it's italicized. So everything would be italicized except for that last comma. All right, any questions on Rule 1.3b? All right, the lovely thing is you have on page 3, chart 1.1, which tells you all of the components that will require italicizing or underlining. But for this class, the only thing we have to worry about is just the case names. All right, perfect. Let's go to Rule 1.3c. And here's where we get into grammar, unfortunately. That was not my strong suit when I was growing up because English was a second language for me. So in section C, it says, do not italicize the possessive endings of italicized components. So if you're looking at my example here for Black's Law Dictionary, which I just saw a typo, I'll have to fix that. So Black's Law Dictionary would all be capitalized for the first letters, but Black's Law, the apostrophe S in Black's is actually part of the name because it's part of the name of the actual book. The apostrophe S on Black's would be underlined or italicized. But the possessive ending is actually at the end of dictionary. So that apostrophe S would not be italicized or underlined because that's not part of the name of the book. So if you look at the bottom of page 3, you're going to see there the correct way that it's underlined, and you would italicize it the same way if you don't want to do the underlining. All right. On the top of page 4 is Rule 1.3d as in dog, And then what happens if something within the name is italicized already or underlined already? Well, you just flip it because it's got to look different. So this is really going to happen only when it's talking about like a law review article or some type of book. So normally the book name would already be italicized, so you would actually just flip it. So you would flip it back to ordinary type. So there's some examples there for you. Like normally, To Kill a Mockingbird would be underlined or italicized. But if you look at the example, we're flipping it. So it's going to switch it back to ordinary type. I wouldn't worry so much about that rule. We're not going to be using it for this class. I just want you to know it's there. All right, so sometimes 1.3e, you're going to see this quite often. And this is where you can actually add emphasis to a word. So when you're reading cases, you're going to see something called emphasis added at the end of a particular sentence. Oops, sorry, I jumped ahead. So if you look at the example in the book, it ends with emphasis added in parentheses with a period at the end. That means something inside the quote was changed so that you would pay attention to what it is. You can either underline it or italicize it. So if you notice here on that fourth sentence, it says, upon such grounds as exist at law or in equity for the revocation of any contract. So they wanted you to pay attention to that part of the quote, so they italicized it. So the correct rule says you have to italicize it or underline it, and then you have to add emphasis added at the end so that the reader knows that you did that intentionally, not that it came that way. All right, and then we have Rule 1.3F as in Frank. So anytime as soon as you start in the law, you start learning all of this Latin words. In chart 1.2, you're going to see a bunch of words there that are Latin that we use on a daily basis in the legal field. Well, for those particular words in the chart, you do not have to italicize. But Rule F says that you have to italicize all the other words that are not listed in chart 1.2. So, for example, if we're using in bank is in chart 1.2, so we just leave it in regular ordinary type. But something such as NV, you would have to italicize it. So if it's on the chart, you leave it alone. If it's not on the chart, then you have to italicize it. The great thing about Black's Law Dictionary, if you guys end up getting one of the little ones or even the big one, if it's a word in Latin and you look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, it will actually show it to you either ordinary type if you just leave it alone, or italicized if it needs to be italicized in your writing. So Black's Law Dictionary actually does the work for you. All right, and that is the end of rule number 1.